Hello, my name is Rinon and welcome to my guide for completing the FFXIV Amphitheater Unreal, or more commonly known as Shiva Unreal, which was just released alongside patch 5.3 of Shadowbringers. This encounter is an upscaled variant of the ARR trial Shiva Extreme, and if you experience that content back with the base game, you're going to have a good idea of what to expect. However, for those of you who are only able to do it unsync or haven't had a chance to go in yet at all, let's get into it. First of all, you are going to need an average minimum item level of 430 to enter, and I feel this is absolutely a challenge that newer players to this game's endgame can feel comfortable attempting. This encounter has 3 distinct phases, one which is going to be from the start of the fight up until 80% of the boss's HP, one that triggers at that point or at 60 seconds into the fight, and the final one which is going to trigger a transition at 70% of the boss's HP, and it will then continue the final third phase until you either clear the fight or you wipe. I'm going to break down each of those phases because there is a lot of RNG in Shiva. The core recurring mechanic of Shiva is going to be Shiva's currently equipped weapon. Each weapon brings with it a couple of signature abilities and also a unique sequence of skills which are going to need to be solved in order to proceed through the fight. And learning what each weapon does quickly and how to adapt to each weapon is going to be your key to victory here. Many parts of the encounter she is going to swap weapons at random and you're going to need to adjust. So let's go into phase 1. She's going to show us 2 weapons first of all, sword and staff form, and I'm going to break them both down. In sword form, auto attacks are going to put a stacking blunt resistance down debuff on the tank, which will result in them taking more damage from staff form auto attacks. So basically when the form changes, you want to tank swap for safety unless your tank is very confident in their cooldown usage. The first ability Shiva will use is Ice Brand, which is a conal cleave which must be taken as a group because it splits the damage taken between all of those hit. So as soon as Shiva turns to sword form, the tank is going to move through the boss, stack on the butt with the rest of the party, and let everybody get hit together for Ice Brand. Her next ability is going to be Glacier Bash, which has a cast bar at the end of the cast. This is going to cleave the tank for high damage and it also stuns them. It's very easy to dodge because you can actually just run through the boss during the cast bar and avoid the attack completely. Last of all, she's going to use Whiteout, which requires you to be close to Shiva to avoid it. She's going to do a big circle AoE around the arena, leaving a small safe spot close to her. On top of that, Heavenly Strike is going to summon random ice spikes around the arena that cause raid damage and tiny knockbacks. You can heal and mitigate this as needed, or just use knockback immunities and ignore it, and these will happen a lot and randomly throughout the fight. The skills are always going to go off in the order that I just described in sword form. So it will be Ice Brand first, then Glacier Bash, then Whiteout. In staff form, auto attacks are going to put a stacking slashing resist down on the tank, which makes them take more damage from sword form attacks. The same deal here, do the tank swap, everything will be fine. Hailstorm will put markers on various players' heads and after a period drop ice AoEs on top of them, spread out for this mechanic and heal the damage afterwards. On top of this, staff form Shiva is going to use Absolute Zero, which is raid damage that should be mitigated and healed. After every individual weapon phase, Shiva is going to gain a permanent damage up stack on herself, and she will summon various patterns of ice AoEs that will go off after a set period of time. Being hit by these causes damage and will give you a vuln stack, so either try to find the safe spot or ensure that you're standing in the middle and will only be hit by a maximum of 1 AoE depending on how comfortable your healers are. When the fight begins, she will randomly swap to either sword form or staff form, play out the sequence of mechanics, take her break for ice AoEs, and then do the other weapon form. Rinse and repeat this until phase 2. As phase 2 begins, Shiva will summon 4 ice soldier adds and swap to sword form. The off tank at the time is going to grab the 4 adds and bring them into the group with the boss, and the group is going to AoE them down ASAP. At the same time, you're going to deal with the Ice Brand into Glacier Bash into Whiteout sequence of sword form mechanics that we are all familiar with by now. As long as the ice soldiers are dead by the time Shiva transitions and freezes the party, you are good to go to proceed to phase 3. Nice and simple, the first half of this fight is very easy to pick up on and learn. In this phase, touching the edge of the arena is going to freeze you in an ice block and deal DOT damage until you die. Much like if you've done recently Memoria Misera, it's the same as that. If that happens, destroy the frozen player's tomb as quickly as possible. In any weapon form in this phase, Shiva can also use Permafrost. Permafrost causes the ground to be covered in slippery ice for a handful of seconds. If you move while the floor is frozen, you're going to slide to the edge of the arena and likely get frozen into an ice jail. It also causes very minuscule DOT damage on the group throughout the entirety of its effect. So whenever Permafrost happens, stop moving and stay still until the floor has stopped being frozen. Shiva is also going to gain a third and final weapon here to her rotation, which is bow form. During bow form, Shiva's auto attacks hit fast and hard. Make sure you are using filler cooldowns to mitigate this if you're tanking. Her first signature skill here is Glass Dance, which is a massive cone AoE which comes in from in front of her about 270 degrees. When you see her summon her bow, immediately make sure that you get directly behind her and stack up as a group to avoid this attack. After Glass Dance goes off, pull Shiva to the north of the arena and have the party remain on her sides or in front of her. One random party member will then get a blue marker on their head. That person is going to come and stand on Shiva's butt. This is because shortly after they are going to be hit by a line AoE attack from Shiva, which is going to deal a small amount of damage, but more importantly, it's going to knock them to the other side of the arena. The marked player can simply move onto Shiva's butt, use a knockback immunity, or use a gap closer after the knockback to get back in, and that's the mechanic resolved. The fight flow for this final phase is simple. She's going to start out in staff form, do the staff mechanics, then she's going to go into bow form, and from then on she is going to go into a random one of sword or staff form, then back into bow. For example, the flow could be staff, into bow, into sword, into bow, into staff, into bow, etc, etc, etc. The last new additions are new patterns for the Hailstorm and Ice Aoes. These are going to happen at the beginning of each new weapon phase, before the unique weapon mechanic patterns occur. The first of which is going to require players to either dodge to cardinal or intercardinal safe spots, depending on where the initial AoEs appear. To solve this mechanic very easily, watch for the first 4 AoEs to appear, and as soon as they go off, immediately dodge into the middle of where they were. This is going to put you directly in or directly next to one of the new safe spots. There is, however, a little ruffle for this dodge. Shiva is going to do an extra mechanic depending on her currently equipped weapon to make this dodge a little bit tougher. In staff form, 4 random players are also going to be targeted with small ice AoEs and must spread out to avoid getting hit by one another. Allow the melee and the tanks to go to the north side safe spots and split the healers and ranged into 2 groups of 2, taking the south side safe spots. I'd recommend heavy mitigation for this to make sure that tanks and melee can maintain uptime even if you are unfortunate and maybe 2 AoEs have to stack on one another. You can still survive that with mitigation. In sword form, she will do an ice brand stack hit before you move to safe spots, so don't move too early, take the stack damage, then move. For a transition into bow form, Shiva is first going to summon an ice AoE in the center of the arena, and then ice AoEs are going to appear one after another in a circle around the edge of the arena. If you've done many extreme primals in this game, you will recognize this pattern. It's the exact same as in Titania Extreme, Tsukiyomi Extreme, fights like this. You find the spot where the final AoE is going to spawn, you stand there, and then when the middle AoE goes off, you move into it. Simple. Now, this should give you all of the information that you need in order to kill Shiva Extreme. I think this boss is pretty simple and honestly very fun to execute, and the fact that it isn't super scripted like some of the other primals in the game means that I have a lot of fun farming it. So I hope that this video helped. If it did help, please drop a sub, click a like, leave me a comment, all of those kind of things, because they help me out very much. And maybe even think about checking out some of my other guides for 5.3 that are either out already or coming out soon. So, thank you very much for watching, and have an absolutely wonderful day. Enjoy 5.3.